you type in, draw a painting of Sheila channeling Theo wearing a purple dress while riding a unicorn. And it will paint that for you in 4 different paintings. In Van Gogh style. I did it just for fun. Mind blowing. So you could see where these tools are going to go, and it's going to alleviate a lot of time consuming things for us as a society. Just so then we have even more time to think about the meaning of life, I hope. Kind of like what Socrates and Plato were doing back in the day.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows where it's going to go? I mean, and again, it's what Theo talks about. There's going to be continual momentum of innovation happening. Mm-hmm. And it's how we navigate it and work with it that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, since you've brought Theo up, is Theo available for a session today? I'd love to ask him some interesting questions. I've been working on a list of questions over the last week. Hopefully interesting questions I don't think he's been asked before. So I'd love to see if we can do that for the audience.
Sure, be happy to.
Appreciate it, my dear.
Here we go. It is the beginning, is it not?
It is.
We are appreciative of the opportunity to be of service unto you.
My first question, Theo, is how does the power of prayer work?
Intention. So know that you are creative beings, placing with intention, and prayer has love in it. Or you wouldn't pray for another or for self. So in a prayer is an ask, but it's also a focus of love, which has momentum in the energetic fields to produce an outcome. However, depending upon what you're praying for, a prayer could just be a wish unless you decide for what you're praying for and are receptive to the outcome of it.
Fair enough. What happens to a soul when it commits suicide?
Every death is a suicide because the soul chooses to leave. We know that shocks most when we say this, but no, every soul will have its own way out, whatever that is. Whether it's by what you call suicide, which is misunderstood by many because one cannot understand why another would in their lives, but you don't know what you don't know. You're looking at them through the lenses you see yourself. So there is in each relinquishment or of the physical a process that occurs of evaluation of the life and what has been learned there. So that's what we would say, whether it's a suicide or any other way of leaving the physical. We do not speak of birth to death. We speak of birth to birth. For you birth into, energetically, into your physical body. And when you leave, you birth into, once again, your multidimensional essence, your eternal soul. So it's not a death. Energy is constant, only form changes.
From the spiritual point of view, what is the quantum field?
From a spiritual point of view, the quantum field is energy. It has no spirituality in it. It's like electricity. We would be asking if electricity had a spiritual point of view. It does not. It has a conduit that harnesses it, that's put in your home or in the world or an office building to be utilized by humanity. But in and of itself, it is not a spiritual essence. It's a tool, isn't it?
Well, then how do
And
you,
so the quantum field does not decide whether what you want in your life is good or bad. It just aligns with the energetics to assist its creation. It does not discern what you're asking for, in other words.
so then how do we access the quantum field?
It's all around you, just like electricity. And you are the conduit with your thoughts and your visions and your emotions. And then this energy aligns with that to bring forth an outcome that is desired.
So it's it's kind of like a co-creation.
Yes, it's a tool, actually.
Well, then what is quantum entanglement?
That's an energy wave. Speaking of quantum entanglement, you're talking about people, aren't you?
Yes.
So that's energy entangling on all levels of how one expresses the energy in human experience, and having quite a bit to do with emotions.
What is the law of one?
It is the oneness of all, the connectivity that you have to every living thing.
But is that law of one the one that is discussed in regards to the densities of the experience of consciousness?
It can be, yes.
Okay. Can you explain the vibrational polarities of the energy centers of the body?
You're speaking of the chakra system.
Correct.
Yes. And so the chakra system is, let's call it the electrical conduits of energy, your soul energy in the body. And when spinning all in synchronicity, maintains an optimum balance. When it does not, then you're out of balance. So paying attention to what you're doing, eating, sleeping, exercising, all the good health habits, hydration, all of these things assists in maintaining the balance of the chakra system or the electrical system of the body.
Well, then what is a Kundalini awakening that I've heard that goes through the chakra system?
The Kundalini awakening is an up-leveling of your vibrational frequency. So as the energies become less dense, you can feel this surge of energy that goes through the body. It could be felt as electricity. It would be a buzzing sensation in all your cells. But specifically through the creative center, which is your center of sexuality or creation itself. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What is your definition of intuition?
Intuition is felt in the human experience because you have a body and you are a sentient being, meaning your body is has the ability through all its senses to feel intuition, gut feeling, body sensations, guidance messages that are heard in the inner mind. visions, clairvoyance. All of these experiences are done through the physical body. That's why it's so interesting for a soul to have a human experience, to feel all those sensations.
Do we all have the ability to channel?
You all do channel. It depends on whatever form the energy and passion you use your soul energy in. The artist is a channeler of the art. The composer, the musician, the book writer, all of these things are channeling experiences. Yes?
They are. But where does that come from? I understand you're channeling, Sheila's channeling Theo, the entity's called Theo. But when you're channeling music or channeling art or channeling writing or channeling math or physics or these kind of things, where is that coming from? Is it the ether?
Oh, coming from the source of energy, of creativity.
And do certain ideas have their time and place to come through?
They do.
So that's why in the last 120 years, so much advancements have been done in technology and art and many other disciplines around the world.
Yes, if you couldn't think about your computer systems, when they all came through, the home computers, they were coming through many people. Came through Stephen Jobs, Bill Gates, same timing. Yes. And they were open conduits for this energy to be channeled through them to be created.
Is that why now there is so much more openness to these messages, these ideas, these conversations that you and I are having right now?
Why it's time for this openness is the fifth dimensionary energy, which is an evolved consciousness that then allows for the individual to have the ability to receive, not being blocked from a belief that it cannot be done. So it's refined, or let's say you broaden the aperture of possibility.
Got it. Okay. What is déjà vu?
Remembering.
Remembering what exactly? If you've never been to that
As
place.
we stated earlier, the veils between your multidimensionality are very thin now. So it's typically a remembrance of something from before that you've experienced.
And what are archangels?
Supervisors.
Can you elaborate?
We can. You as humans know about hierarchy in, let's say, corporations.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about the billions of angelic beings, the seraphim, and many others, the archangels are supervisory over those different legions of angels. And as messengers or teachers of the word of source or God.
And have they always been, or have they evolved to that point?
They have always been.
And how do we connect to our higher selves?
You do connect. It's just knowing it's possible. Every time you go within and ask a question and feel a feeling or an answer, you've connected. And you can call it your higher self, your higher power, your intuition. Many words could be used.
When a soul decides to leave this earthly experience, do the near-death experiences that have become so popular over the last 30 or 40 years, are they accurate representations of what is happening on the other side?
To some degree, because it's the perception of the person having it. Each person in their own experience will experience what they experience. There may be consistencies in it, but it has to do with their belief systems as well, of what they can accept. We find it amusing that you say near-death experience have become popular.
Mm-hmm. Why?
It's just the stories about them that have become popular.
Correct. The story of the information is getting out there more, so it's become more and more accepted.
Yes.
And
even by those who don't believe in them.
Correct, because there's a curiosity about all of it.
Yes.
What is your definition of living a good life?
A good life lived by you is the fulfillment that your soul's desires are met.
What is your definition of God?
Solid state of unconditional love.
What is the ultimate purpose of life?
Life.
Can you elaborate?
Life is the purpose. What most people say is, what's my purpose? What they want to know is, where can they express their life energy passionately?
There.
So you've achieved purpose by entering the physical body, by life itself. And life itself is always wanting more life lived through you and for you. That's why you keep creating and being interested, and it's life emerging more, wanting more life. Yes?
Yes. And finally, do you have any message that you would like to leave the audience with?
Know that you are more than you think you are. And if you could see yourselves as we see you, there would be no discontent. There would be only love.
Thank you so much for this time. I appreciate it, Theo.
We are appreciative of the opportunity to serve. God's love unto you.
Thank you.
Good day.
Good day. That doesn't get old. That doesn't get old.
No.
It doesn't get old. Remind me, Sheila, do you do remember what's going on, or do you get pushed aside?
You know, I don't consciously remember everything or the questions. There'll be little bits and pieces that I remember. But if you were to discuss it with me, it'd be, oh yeah, I know that. Or if I would listen to the recording, I would be like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of
but
like,
it's not, I don't come out going, oh, well, they said this, this, and this, you know, that kind of thing.
It's almost like a dream state. Like you kind of remember the dream, but if it was told to you again,
it's
you're
like a lucid dream. It's
right.
kind of like a lucid dream. You know what's going on, and words are being spoken, but I don't remember it all.
Well, I asked Theo some very difficult questions, and with the I say he for lack of a better word because his name is Theo.
That's fine.
He really he didn't hesitate. You know, where other
they never do.
They never do. They don't. They don't hesitate. I mean, the one really difficult question I asked was about suicide. What happens? And just like that, they just like, it's this, and this, and I go, no, shocking, but this is what's happening. It's just very a matter of fact. I realize now, because we were talking about AI earlier, when you ask AI questions, it goes straight to the point. It does not hesitate. It's very similar to talking to Theo.
Oh, yeah.
Because they'll answer a question, and sometimes it'll be a short answer, sometimes it'll be a long, elaborate question or answer. But sometimes they're like, elaborate. Can you elaborate? Yes. And it's the same thing with AI. You ask it a question, it will give you an answer. You're like, can you go a little deeper in that? Sure. And it keeps going. So I
Yeah.
was just remember,
Yeah.
I just saw the very similar energy of the question and answer process with Theo, specifically with Theo. Is just a
Yeah.
very straight to the point.
Well, they are. And, to your point is you can ask for more information. And that's what my husband Marcus is so good at when we do our programs and so forth. If a question is asked, he's so intuitive. He knows that they'll give more, and he'll ask another question to broaden the answer, or say, could you say more about that? And they will,
They do. They do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I discovered, I think you didn't mention this in our first interview, but I discovered in that channeling documentary that you were prepped for Theo by another entity.
Yes.
You never
Yes.
mentioned that
Orlos.
before. Can you talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that? Because I don't think we ever spoke about that in the first interview.
Yeah. The first spokesman that came through was an entity called Orlos, Orlos. Very soft spoken, almost whisper, and gentle and kind, and told me that my body was being prepared for higher teachers, that there was an adjustment energetically for this ability to have them come directly through me. And so that was about 2 years.
And
That Orlos,
Did you do readings with Orlos?
yeah, and I did groups. And then I was in Seattle working with a group of people, and Orlos said, "It's time to leave. The higher teachers are here." And Theo came in. Oh my gosh, the power. I mean, and loud, really loud.
Loud in your head or loud verbally?
Verbally. To me, I felt the power in my body. But the people in the room were like, "Wow, what was?" And they came in and they said, "We'll be known by the name Theo. We're 12 archangels. We will not identify individually because it's the message we want you to hear. And it's not about the messenger." And they told me to look up the word Theo in the dictionary. They just gave a lot of information, but they sounded, to your point of AI, very computer-like, very unemotional. They've blended with my energy enough now, they sound more human. But when they first came through, and then people would say, "Well, what accent is it? Where are they from?" Well, we asked that question, and the answer was, it's not a specific accent, and it used to be much stronger. It's not a specific accent because they come through the vibrational frequencies of our planet, our atmosphere, our world, and it's a blending of all language and a blending of all sound that it comes out like that. And so a lot of people years ago, they would say, "Oh, it sounds German. Oh, it sounds Indian. Oh, it's but what was, however, they were hearing the message that resonated in the way they heard it. But they said there's no actual specific accent to a specific place. It's all about the vibrations that they come through and enter my body and use the vocal cords to come out."
And that that prepping period was kind of like priming the machine to handle the electrical voltage that was coming in, essentially.
Yeah.
Because if not, you'll blow.
Well, it was, the only way I can describe to people, how does it feel? It's like sticking your finger in a 220 outlet. I mean, it doesn't look like that, but it's a huge electrical.
But you're good with it now. But now you're
Oh yeah. But in the beginning, and when that first happened, for about the first week that they came in, when you hit your elbow,
Yeah.
how that feels, how
Oh,
uncomfortable that is. My whole upper body felt like that.
oh my God.
And I said, if this continues, I can't do this, because it was so uncomfortable in my nervous system. And they said, oh, no, 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 we're just
We'll adjust.
adjusting it. Yeah. And they have, and there have been a few times over the years where there's been another adjustment, because they just keep fine tuning my body for a greater ease of communication.
Does Theo or the group that identifies as Theo, do they channel through others under other names as far as the knowledge is concerned or the source energy is concerned?
They say not.
They say not. So this
Yeah.
group is just yours, and that's it.
Well, mine and yours, and
Obviously, yeah. But you're the entry point. You're the doorway, if you will.
yeah, I'm just the megaphone.
You're the Chronicles of Narnia. You go right through the wardrobe, right to the other side. I wanted to ask you, because I mean the messages that come out through Theo are so profound, but through your work over the decades that you've been doing this, has the message ever been lost because people are just more fascinated with how it's happening rather than the message coming out, especially at the beginning? Because it would be it's a little bit more acceptable now, but I imagine at the beginning, and by the way, it's still not by any stretch completely normal, not normal, but accepted widely today, but more now than ever before. But I'd imagine the first times it would be kind of like they would just be in awe of it and almost just kind of like focused on what was happening as opposed to the message that was coming out.
Yeah, yes. And as we've been able to receive the messages, they've gotten broader and deeper. As we're ready to make the changes psychologically, emotionally, and intellectually, the more curious we remain in our asking, the more information they give us. So yeah, it was very rudimentary. Well, maybe that's not even the right word in the beginning. And most people wanted to know, like psychic readings, more future, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to move to Florida? Am I, all of those things that naturally are part of our human life and
Experience. Sure.
curiosities, but has gone from those first initial asking, and a lot of asking about deceased loved ones, because it's so healing, when people get a message.
And they got messages of loved ones as well?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know you did that.
But what was interesting for me is the different things in a global sense. Like, I got information about Watergate 2 years before it was public. And I got to tell you, shocking.
I mean, because
16 years later, I met John Ehrlichman, who confirmed everything that I'd gotten. So it's been a fascinating ride, you might say, of prophecy that now I've borne witness to for several decades. And so I just trust so much more. Well, not more now, but because of all that confirmation, all that knowledge, all that affirming of the information, it's just like, oh yeah, doing this with you today is another one, because they said this would be happening right in the early times of the 70s, that we would be communicating like this, and that this kind of information would be more widely accepted because of media and because of the ability to communicate in these ways. And I had no evidence in my life about that being possible, other than all of the other things that they had said that kept being affirmed every day. And so I just went, oh, okay. And here we are, here we are doing it.
So you mentioned that as we've kind of grown psychologically and spiritually and kind of awakened more, the veil is becoming thinner and thinner. Is that why, and I'm asking this question for people listening, but is that why, like when a Jesus or a Buddha or a Babaji or Yogananda, there's so many different masters who walk the earth, they only were able to teach to a certain level, very basic ideas, because the consciousness of the people around them, they couldn't. Can you imagine during Jesus's time going, so there's a chakra system, and then can you imagine? He would have been burned at the stake too, probably. And he was, well, obviously he was crucified.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it didn't go too far from that, obviously. So, I mean, because his ideas were so out there at that time. And even then you look back at the basic teachings are these basic truths that we all understand and we take for granted today, but he couldn't go farther, let's say Jesus or even Buddha. They couldn't go deeper.
Well, that was also the density of the energy at the time, too.
Right.
Our energies are so much more refined now.
Right.
So, yeah, it was our ability to receive the information was limited.
And do you you were mentioning that you've seen so many kind of prophecies happen. Is there
Mhm.
anything that Theo has said? I don't think I've ever even asked you this. Am I moving to Florida? No, I'm joking. But no, but is there any?
Oh,
Thank you. You see, you're right. I knew you were right. But is there any broad brushstrokes of things like, hey, you're going to be talking through the internet and this information? Is there any big things like that Theo has said in the past?
now, yes, and we're living them right now. In my first book, The Fifth Dimension,
Mm-hmm.
they spoke about this time, really, that there would be this huge change of consciousness and political structures would change throughout the world, that we would be a global economics, global economy, um, that we would gather together. There would be a United Nations, much more powerful than the one we have now, that would be a collaborative group, not so insular. And of late, they've said the pandemic has been a part of that, recognizing that there's this oneness, as it were, that we're one species, we're all connected. There's no lines that separate us. So it's, for the virus, didn't discriminate.
Nope.
And it spread through like wildfire through the whole world. Well, yeah, we're all that connected.
Mm-hmm.
And so all this chaos that's been going on is all part of the change. So I feel really optimistic and positive. As they say, out of the chaos will come order. And, we hear all the negative stuff, but there's a lot of stuff we don't hear, good stuff that's happening,
Right.
for the planet and for new business and more connections. So I feel really positive about our evolution, let's say, as a species.
Well, I'm glad someone's positive about it. We're all we keep hearing all the negative. It's good to hear this, everyone.
Well,
It's something that needs to be said.
I think we need to have people talking about the positive stuff.
Absolutely. It's so negative. Negative sells, fear sells. That's why, the news organizations and media in general, like fear sells. Fear definitely
Yeah.
sells, more than
Oh, yeah.
good news does. But I always try to look for the good news out there because it's
Well, it's kind of the human species. Negative news travels faster than positive news.
very much so, very much so.
And it gets addictive too.
Oh no, yeah, well, it's a kind of like a reinforcement circle, if you will. It constantly just keeps going and going, and you just want more and more and more of it, and then you go down a rabbit hole, and then if you live in fear constantly, it is so stressful. It's
It is, but that's how people have been controlled
correct.
for centuries. And that's what's changing. You know, we need more critical thinking on our planet. People to say, is that true? You know, really check themselves about
Right.
what's true and
Right.
what's not.
Yeah, kind of like, so Jesus was born, then he showed up 30 years later, and nothing happened in those 30 years. Like, how? Like, just give me that. That was the second graders critical thinking. When I thought that, I was like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And we all know that. We all know how to feel that feeling you're talking about. Just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't,
Right?
it doesn't make sense. Yeah. But then when you start hearing these ideas from channels and from spiritual teachers and, Indian gurus and, all sorts of spiritual masters from around the world, again, and I've said this before in the show, and I'll say it again because I have a very unique perspective, because I get to talk to people like you all the time. I've now done close to 200 of these episodes in a year, which is a lot of information that has come at me. But I keep seeing the patterns. I keep seeing these patterns from every walk of life, whether it's a guru in India, whether it's a channel like yourself, where it's a medium, where it's a quantum physicist. These ideas, there's patterns that I'm seeing to recognize now again and again, which just reinforces the truth, because a truth is a truth, period. You can't, it's what it is. And the more it rings true, the stronger it is, the stronger the vibration of the information is.
Yeah.
And I just keep seeing it again and again and again. And like I said, I haven't spoken to a channel that goes, hey, drink more. It's all about the physical. You forget about that spiritual stuff. Like, I never be selfish. Don't be of service. Like, I've never heard that, because those aren't truths. And and if I would come out and say that, like, guys, I've been thinking it's really all about yourself. Everybody would go, this doesn't smell right. Some people might like it because they're like, oh yeah, he's right. But most people would go, this doesn't smell right.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Sheila. I asked these questions of Theo, but I'll ask them of you as well. My last question, so I want to hear what you think this time. What is your definition of living a good life?
All my dreams and desires being met, and that doesn't mean winning the lottery. Not that that wouldn't be nice, but it just means waking up in the morning just grateful for that day of life and love.
What is your definition of God?
Unconditional love.
And
Like I can say that because Theo says that.
Yes, exactly what he said. Yeah, he said it. He said it a little differently than you did. It's just a little bit more forceful, a little bit straight.
Well, they're a little more forceful.
And what is the ultimate purpose of life?
Life.
That's what they said too.
See, I'm a good student. See,
the first one you had to think about, but the last two, that was Theo. That came out through Theo.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been a good student of that because we all want to know what our purpose is. And if you really think about it, it's true, because all we want to do is survive from the minute we're born.
Right.
And so life is important, obviously. If we didn't have that life in us, we couldn't paint the picture or write the book or sing the song.
One last question. Did you and Theo speak on the other side prior to your incarnation? Like, they chose you, or did you have this conversation on the other side? Have they ever spoken to you about this?
Well, I don't remember it, but I they have been asked, and they come through me by agreement. So I'm thinking
There's
we
paperwork.
have a
There's paperwork involved. There was a notary. I'm assuming there's a notary on the other side. And where can people find out more about you and the wonderful work you're doing with Theo?
At our website, asktheo.com.
And
And we have many great things coming up.
oh, very cool. What's coming up?
Yeah, we have the Art of Relationship 7-week course coming up, starting in February.
Very
And
nice.
it's really about all relationships, primary, work, family, end of life, but most importantly, love of self, the relationship to the self, because that's primary to everything else. But it's really a good course. So it's fun. It's really fun.
And
And we have an Art of Relationship book that's newly published. So
when's that come? Is that that just come out, or is it coming out?
it is out, and we're revising right now because, yeah, I'll just unabashedly show you.
Please, yes, of course, yes, yes, yes.
And it talks about, well, it was born out of these programs, the Art of Relationship program, and it's Theo. We asked Theo a few years ago, "What's next? What do you want to talk about?" And they said relationships, because everything's relational. Everything we do,
It's
we're in
entangled.
relationship to somebody else. Even at the supermarket, when we're checking out, we're having a relationship with the clerk. So it helps us navigate all those things.
And is there a message you would like to leave the audience with?
The typical love yourself, but just know you're more than you think you are, and you have more than you think you do. And just remain curious and become that moreness in your life.
Sheila, thank you so much for coming back on the show. You're welcome back anytime, you and Theo, to come back and chat with me. I love having you on. And thank you for all the amazing work you're doing in the world. I appreciate you.
Oh, Alex, it's my pleasure. And I love talking to you. So you just let me know when and where, and I'll be there. Okay?
Appreciate you.
Right.
Remember, you are born spiritual and I am born spiritual.